Thank
going
you.
up.
Thank you very much, Steve, for
Thank
such a
you.
warm and kind introduction. I'm excited and delighted to be with these amazing leaders. I honor this time with you because I know who you are innately. You are great leaders that are shaping our continent, that are shaping our nation. So I'm grateful to God for that. And I thank you, Emily, for praying for us. Uh, Steve, congratulations for organizing this session, but also your commitment to building other people. That kind of investment is something that is unequaled. You can invest in projects, but the best investment in the world is to invest in other people. You asked me to talk about leadership in the age of AI, data, and constant change. It's interesting that you ask a 61-year-old to talk about that. But I will do my best because even at this age, we are confronted with accelerated change, with the wicked challenges that have been persistent over the years, but then very high levels of complexity. So if we don't change, we will become extinct very soon. So if you can, thank you so much for sharing the slides. If you can go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you very much. So we've always been talking about the VUCA world. I've been talking about it for a long time. And the VUCA world is a world which is volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous, because things are changing all the time. The only constant thing is change. But in the last few years, we have what we call VUCA plus plus, where we have, which is accelerated by AI, data, and exponential change. There are things we never thought would happen in real life, which we are seeing right now. And in the times before, change was a bit episodic, Um, I remember when we were gearing up for the year 2000, it was the millennium, and people thought, in fact, all computers were going to stop. Some people thought the world was coming to an end. They sold everything. They drank. Some of the people drank all night, hoping that they won't need to wake up. And they woke up. It was a bit episodic, but now change is continuous and compounding. What you thought was relevant yesterday may not be tomorrow. And the challenge for us now is no longer just managing change. If you try to manage change, you become reactive and life can easily overtake you. We need now to move toward the leading in permanent disruption. It's just like when you have, I don't know if you've seen a mouse in a cage with a round, what do you call it? Is it like a rolling wheel? The wheel is rolling, but you also have to keep moving and keep moving while the wheel is rolling. Nothing is waiting for you. That is the situation we're in. If we can go to the next slide, please. So, what we see in the leadership field is that the future belongs to leaders who are developed in 4 dimensions. And some of those, you have mentioned them very well, Steve. The first is your inner capacity. And these are areas that AI may not be able to replace. Um, One is inner capacity, who you are. And these are days when, because of the constant change, the high levels of complexity, um, employers, business partners, investors are looking for people with resilience, who are resilient, able to keep moving under difficult circumstances, people who have confidence, people with mental agility. And the mental agility, it doesn't come born with intelligence. You really need to cultivate it, and as well as emotional intelligence, which Steve has already talked about. Emotional intelligence, understanding that all humans are emotional beings and operating in such a way that is cognizant of the way they feel, the way they take what you are saying, what you are doing to them. Another important dimension is the cognitive capacity, how you think. You've talked about critical thinking, analytical thinking, problem solving, systems thinking, and decision making under uncertainty. I remember one time I was going through a test of, becoming a UN resident coordinator. And it was a simulated 3-day test. And one of the tests was to prepare a presentation for a key, very high level boss coming from headquarters. So I prepared my presentation. I was ready to present. I had set up the whole room. And then the tester, told me, sorry, the situation has changed. Um, we have a serious situation in the country. There has been a kidnapping, and headquarters want to know what you're going to do about it as the head of the organization in the country. Now, I had spent a whole night preparing my presentation. Now I'm given a totally different assignment, given new information, and I'm told to prepare, in 15 minutes, a report that will enable headquarters to make decisions, you know. And then after 15 minutes, I had done that. They said, now the situation has changed. So what were they testing? They were testing my ability, to, to solve problems, to think critically, to think not about that specific problem, but about the whole system. How is my decision going to affect, not only those who are kidnapped, but those who are not kidnapped by rebels? So I'm just giving you a picture so that you see what is required of leadership in this day and age. You can't stand there and complain, I didn't know, you didn't tell me that this was going to happen. Nobody's going to tell you that COVID is coming. And you've already just set up a new business. You have invested a lot, and that business requires people to come to your premises, but the government has shut down. What are you going to do to rise up out of the ashes and make things happen? Um, Yes. So then the next one is relational capacity. The third dimension is relational capacity. How collaborative are you? We were brought up in times where competition was the order of the day. You didn't even want to share any information with anybody because you feared that somebody would take over from you. But I thank God for this new generation. You guys are so collaborative. You share almost everything, maybe too much sometimes, but collaboration, networking, building your social capital is also very important. You know, influencing 360 degrees, what we call 360-degree influencing, is also very important. You don't only influence the people below you, and I'm a John Maxwell leadership coach, certified leadership coach, and we talk about this 360-degree influence and leadership. You lead people below you, you lead people who are your peers, and you also lead people above you or in your sector. So influence is critical. We are coming to a time when peer-to-peer influence is even more important than orders coming from above. So these are capacities we really need to think about and deliver. And of course, another element of relational capacity is trust building. And trust comes from integrity. Trust comes from, uh, you know, doing what you say you will do. Most people think integrity is simply not stealing money. No, integrity is about being faithful, uh, doing what is expected of you, even beyond beyond expectations. It's about having a good track record such that you can be easily referred by your friends to other people. The fourth dimension is executional capacity, what you deliver. But it's not just about delivering, it's about when you deliver. You might deliver something so beautiful, but it has taken forever. And in this AI technology assisted world, there's no reason why we should take ages to deliver good work. So within this, adaptability is critical. That has been mentioned already by Steve. Innovation, is so important. And big thinking, Uh, if you continue to think small, you will only achieve what is small. If you think big, it means you're thinking beyond you, meaning that you're allowing God, to guide you where you should go. I can tell when somebody shares a vision with me, whether this is their personal vision or whether it is a God-led vision, because a God-led vision is usually beyond your own generation, because we serve a multi-generational God. If you have any questions on what I'm saying, you will be able to put them up at the end. We will have a question and answer session. But if what I'm saying is not making sense, please let me know. Can we go to the next slide? So now I would like us to look at AI data and leadership. I do not have so much on data. And Steve, you might need to bring somebody, on to tackle data analytics, which is very critical for the world we live in today. But I just want to mention that there is a lot of fear that AI is taking jobs, displacing human workers. However, yes, it is happening in many ways, but AI is also bringing opportunities. Okay, and AI will not replace leaders, but leaders who use AI will replace those who don't. And I really want to make that statement very clear. Leaders who use AI effectively will replace those who don't use AI. AI has brought, about 3 levels of impact that can help us fast track our growth, either as an individual professional or as a company or as an organization. The first is automation, where AI replaces repetitive tasks and improves efficiency, like calendar management, emails. We have the email chimp that can send out emails to so many people that are even personalized. This is amazing, absolutely amazing. But most organizations operate mainly, take advantage of AI mainly through automation. However, we also have augmentation, where AI enhances human capability and speeds up your thinking, analysis, and writing. I'm not saying that, AI would think for you. If you allow AI to think for you, you become dependent, and you may find that it is reducing your cognitive abilities if you become dependent on it. But if you interact with it intelligently, where you bring your own content and AI helps you to structure, maybe to augment with additional research, and giving you perhaps additional information and editing your work, bringing language in the tone that you need, maybe that is something that can be very helpful. A third level of impact is transformation, where AI is helping you to change how decisions are being made. It changes business models and changes what skills actually matter at the moment. It can really help you, based on the data that you're receiving, on especially the data driven insights that you get. They are real-time insights, where before we used to make decisions based on our experience, intuition, very limited data, and time-consuming analysis. Now we can have data-driven insights that come in real time. We can be more predictive, what is likely to happen next. We can do scenario-based planning, because AI can simulate various outcomes. And I remember we did this in UNDP in Zanzibar, where we used AI to help us understand how tourism, how what are the patterns, the buying patterns, preferences, and future demand for tourism in Zanzibar. And we had very good insights, which were real time. So, it can really help a lot with that. The key questions that leaders need to ask is, what business am I in? Am I really taking advantage of AI and data analytics to improve my business in real time? So, in my view, AI can either make you sharper, or, as I said earlier, it can make you intellectually dependent. When you outsource thinking, you weaken your judgment. But if you use AI to challenge and refine your thinking, you can grow exponentially, and you're able to reach your goals much more easily. I believe that the leader of the future, the leader who is future proof, is not just intelligent and skilled in their field, but is an AI augmented thinker. I've learned to use AI actually mainly in 2025, 2026. That's why I speak for it. Leaders must learn if you're using AI to ask better questions. What you need to improve now are prompting skills, in order to get the right information out. You need to validate the outputs, that is critical thinking, and also apply judgment, as you use the system, which by applying judgment, we mean you use wisdom to say, is this right or not? And as Steve said, AI cannot give you ethical judgment at all. So it is better to use AI to structure your ideas, drafting and refining your work, but not for judgment, strategic direction, or ethical decisions. Now, moving forward, I would really like us to touch on a very important aspect of leadership, and that is our mindset. Okay. We know technology is advancing faster than human thinking, yet leadership is still determined by the way we think. Okay? Leadership is determined by the way we think. If AI is transforming how we work, then the mindset determines whether we rise or fall in this transformation. Okay, I want to repeat that. If AI is transforming how we work, then the mindset determines whether we rise or fall in this transformation. Success in this environment that we are in requires what we call a growth mindset. But before we look at the growth and fixed mindsets, I would like us to first understand what is a mindset. It's very important because the mindset we have determines how far and how high we can go. Those of you who know the big book, it tells us that what a man thinketh, so is he. Meaning that your current results, the results you have where you are at the moment, reflect your level of thinking. If you are at a very low level, it means your level of thinking still needs some work. Okay? You cannot go beyond your level of thinking. You cannot go beyond your thought patterns or belief systems. Whenever you go beyond them, the default level of thinking will always pull you back. I've seen this happen to many people. And in fact, this is what happens to instant millionaires or lottery winners. You know, a big percentage, more than 70% of them become bankrupt within 1 year because they became rich all of a sudden. They rose up, but their patterns of thinking are still broke patterns. And that's why they are pulled back down. I've seen one person who was raised up very quickly into promotion, into a leadership position, but his character and pride brought him down. So this is a very important issue that I would like us to discuss. If you look at the image, I don't know what kind of mindsets we have there. You can you can put that in the chat and share what you think is going on in that scene. But certainly, that dog, whether it's a dog or a puppy, whatever, must have a huge mindset and must have maybe somebody behind him also following. Next slide, please. So, what is a mindset? A mindset is an established pattern of thinking in our subconscious mind that determines all our thoughts, words, and actions. It determines how we interpret reality, how we make decisions and respond to opportunities and adversities. You will find some people who have many opportunities coming to them, but they say, oh, in our family, we never rise up beyond high school. Oh, in our family, we don't marry. Oh, these are mindsets that have been established and belief systems that have been established for many years that are so ingrained in them that they determine everything that they do. Even when they get married, they themselves may self-sabotage the marriage if they have that feeling that in our family marriages don't last. So I would like us to explore this deeper. Next slide. Bob Proctor is one of my mentors, but he passed away recently. In that slide, he tries to teach us what is the mind. And he divides the mind into two. One is the conscious mind, and the other is the subconscious mind. And you have the body below. Now, if you look at the next box, you will find that in your conscious mind, you have all your dreams and goals and visions. But then in the subconscious mind, you have your paradigm. He called the mindset a paradigm. You have your belief system and self-image that even when, your goals are big, but inside you feel small. I am nothing, I am just a woman. I'm just a school teacher. I am just that self-image will allow, will make your actions, align with your thinking, not necessarily with your goals. And then that will affect your attitude. Okay, your attitude towards the opportunities that come along, the correction that comes along to you when somebody tries to correct you, everything. And that attitude will then determine your results, right? So a mindset is an established pattern of thinking in our subconscious that determines our thoughts. If you have examples of how your mindset has has affected your opportunities, please share it in the chat, and Steve can help us to read out as the information comes. But if we go to the next slide, I want you to look at that, the programmed, oh, sorry, it says T, the programmed mind, David versus the circus elephant. Can anybody tell us what you see there? Anybody? What do you see in that picture? Are you all quiet on me? Emily, what do you see? Am I talking with leaders? Or you want me to tell you everything? What do you see in the picture?
Hello, Mrs. Christine.
Yes,
Can
Zipporah,
you hear
thank
me?
you. Yes,
Okay.
very well.
Thank you. I can
Mm.
see, I can comment on the second photo, where
Yes,
I see David on top of, I'm assuming Goliath. Yes,
yes,
when he's
yes.
laid down. Yes, thank you.
You're seeing David, what kind of mindset does David have?
Hello, Madam Christine. I'm Christine too.
Yes,
I see
yes,
courage.
have
He
seen.
was courageous to take on the task to kill Goliath.
Yes, you see that he is very courageous to take on Goliath. And if you hear the words he said, he asked him, he was asking, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? He David genuinely felt that he was much higher than this uncircumcised Philistine because he was serving, the Almighty God. He had the power of God behind him. So he came with so much courage. But look at this powerful animal, the elephant, with a string tied to its leg. And that string tied to its leg, it's a circus elephant, keeps it standing there without moving, even if it is big enough to cut a big tree. Why? Because when it was young, it was repeated, it was tied to that same string, and it had no power because it was small to break away. Now, when it repeated the efforts to break away, eventually it realized that I'll never break away from this. So even as it grew bigger and bigger, it remained tied to that little string. In its mind, it thinks this, I can never overcome this string. And my prayer is that if there is a string tying you down, when inside you're a much bigger person, may the Lord give you the insight and courage to say, no, this is not my portion anymore. I have to break off. I have to break away. Next slide, please. Yes, this is Proverbs 23:7, which I already mentioned. It says, as a man thinks, so is he. As a woman thinks, so is she. And my question is, how do you think about yourself? I hope you're not like that girl in the picture, who is saying, I can't do it. I'm not worthy. I must be perfect. Perfection is one of the very uh, you know bad elements that keep people inactive because they're waiting for the perfect conditions to happen before they take any action. Even those who don't want to make mistakes, those who think, oh, nobody loves me, they cannot move beyond that. So it's very important that we move away from that. Next slide, I would like us to look very quickly. Steve, you tell me when to stop. But because I still have content to share. I see it's 2049. What kind of mindsets are we dealing with? We have the slavery mindsets, we have the poverty mindsets, we have the fixed and growth mindsets by Caroline Dweck. But we also have limiting self-perceptions like that young lady that we were talking about in the previous slide. Can you take us to the next slide, please? Yes. So, the slavery mindset is one where you're focusing on discomfort. You remember the children of Israel left, they were given freedom from Egypt, but they kept on complaining. Do you sit with people who complain all the time? Oh, you have freedom, but you are complaining you want onions and garlic under slavery, okay? They focus on what they don't have rather than what they have. In other words, they are not grateful. They have fear, idolatry, they feel entitled. They see God more as a supplier, and not as a partner in purpose. They are driven by the I, me, and myself mentality, and they refuse growth and culture change. In this day and age, you cannot afford to have the slavery mindset. You cannot refuse growth and culture change because things are changing and they are changing very fast. The poverty mindset is a worldview that begins from the premise of lack and scarcity. If you're always thinking, oh, we don't have, this sometimes fuels greed and survival mentality. People grab things because they think there will not be enough for everybody. It creates an atmosphere of competition than collaboration, creates artificial economies where people are hoarding, and this leads to inflation and other problems. The poverty mindset attracts insatiable desire for accumulation of wealth, which eventually motivates people to steal, kill, and destroy, from people, from communities, from nations to sustain their wealth and resources, and then we have the fixed and growth mindsets and limiting self-perceptions, which I will share with you as we move forward. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, Caroline Dweck, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So Caroline Dweck wrote a book called Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. And she identified two mindsets. The fixed mindset, which is which thinks that your qualities are carved in stone, and the growth mindset, which says your basic qualities are things you can cultivate through your efforts. A growth mindset believes that everything can change and grow through application and effort. And this is the kind of mindset we need for the world we have, which is VUCA plus plus, AI acceleration world, okay? Let's go to the next slide and see how the fixed and growth mindset, treat the aspect of talent and effort. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. How does a growth mindset deal with the issue of talent? A fixed mindset focuses on talent as the main thing. It believes that talent and intelligence is everything. That's what defines you, and it protects you from failure. Effort is only for people with deficiencies. They have to work very hard in order to achieve something. And, if you have no deficiencies and are considered a genius, a talent, or a natural, then you have a lot to lose if you put in a lot of effort. But those who have a growth mindset believe that even the genius has to work very hard. There is no honor in just being gifted. Even Mozart, practiced the music every single day. He didn't miss a day of practice. And yet he was a music genius. Okay, the growth mindset, says that what any person in the world can learn, almost all persons can learn if provided with the appropriate conditions of learning. I keep telling people I failed my O-level maths completely because my teacher, made it very clear that I'll never make it in math. But then because I wanted to study economics at A level, I had to teach it myself over 3 months, and I passed. And I'm wondering, I didn't even need a teacher, because I realized that if I put enough effort, I would actually be able to do it. And I did it while also doing my A levels. Next slide, please. How do our mindsets handle failure? The fixed mindset, the idea of trying and failing is so terrifying. But the growth mindset things the growth mind thinks that they can find failure painful, but it doesn't define me. The fact that I failed math doesn't mean I'm a failure. In fact, I'm quite successful. I have been quite successful. A fixed mindset do not entertain a notion of being challenged or of curiosity. They merely see their intelligence as something they need to prove to others rather than build on it. While a growth mindset sees failure is important because it highlights a problem that allows the individual to face, deal with, and learn from. So Success is in a growth mindset is about stretching yourself. It's about becoming smarter, and effort is what makes you smarter or talented. So where the fixed mindset says, I can't do this, the growth mindset says, I can't do this yet. Okay. Next slide. I hope we can go to the next slide. Is about relationship building. The fixed mindset has if you lose, I win. If you win, I lose mentality. While the growth mindset looks at working together where we can create more value. Basically, instead of dividing the little that is there, which is a fixed mindset, a growth mindset thinks, how can we work together, collaborate, and build a bigger pie, than just trying to fight for the small pie that is in that is available to us. In a fixed mindset, relationships are governed by relative power. They're transactional, they're almost manipulative. While in a growth mindset, the levels of collaboration and trust deepen with time, creating a more valuable relationship. I know that these days we operate with contracts and agreements, but there are times when a handshake was enough. And I'm hoping that we can go back to that time where a handshake means honor, to one another. So the fixed mindset is more transactional and it focuses on a positional leadership, while the growth mindset is more transformative. It doesn't talk about division, but it talks about building bigger, and it's more inclusive type of leadership. Let's go to the next slide. We talk about the ruler versus the leader mindset. Next slide, please. The ruler mindset is more about I deserve better treatment. I deserve a better house. I am the one who deserves the seat in the front. It's a relationship of power control and extraction of value from others, whereas the leadership mindset is more about I would treat others the way I wish to be treated. Even the good Lord gave us the two greatest commandments: love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. And a growth mindset believes that we all deserve a better life. We must all move to our destination together. It's relationships of giving and sharing, including the sharing of power. When you hear the word empower, it is not, just, it's about sharing power with another person, growing together and multiplying our value. Next slide, please. Then we have the purpose impact mindset. If we can go to the next slide, please. This is a mindset that is driven by clarity of purpose and vision. I'm telling you, without a clear reason why you're here, without a clear vision of where you're going, it is very difficult to have real impact in your life. It is the kind of thing that moves you from success to significance. Many of us are looking for success. You're working for success. But a purpose impact driven mindset is seeking for significance. Significance is where you add value to yourself so you can add value to others. And you can only add value to people when you value people. Okay? You cannot add true value to someone whom you don't value. You have the ability to influence thousands and millions of people if you do this intentionally. So the issue is a true leader in this time is one that leaves a legacy. a legacy for the future. And for me, my prayer is that what I'm speaking with you, will make an impact for you to add value also to others. The next slide, please. So in conclusion, uh, okay. I didn't tackle the limiting self-perceptions. These are mainly found in women, but also in men, where you are thinking of yourself as smaller than you really are. You tend to shrink in order to fit. You always say, oh, I'm only a teacher, oh, I'm only this, yet you are a kingmaker. A teacher is a kingmaker. Why are you shrinking yourself in order to fit in the environment? If the people you are with uh, um, are not forward looking, they are not people who are interested to grow, then either spend time with them to lift them out of it. But if you're not lifting out of it, if you're not lifting them out of it, get out. Get out of that company. You don't need to shrink in order to fit. All right. Sometimes we have a confidence deficit. We strive so much for perfection. When a man applies for a job, they will see, oh, I can do 40% of this, and they will put in their application. Okay. And women, I don't know why. We want to be 99.9% sure that we have all the qualifications. And sometimes we lose out on opportunities because we are striving for perfection. Okay. I want you to affirm yourself. You need to practice, affirmation, especially women. In fact, I want you to carry, just now, I'm going to give you 1 minute to write 3 I ams. You can write them in the text in the chat, or you can write them in your notebook. That I am worthy, I am a leader, I am a positive person, I am going somewhere. Just write 3 affirmations about yourself. This, because what you hear is what is coming out of your system, and it's what you believe. Okay, so give yourself affirmations. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing comes by the word of God. So go to the word of God and get the beautiful scriptures which describe you. I am the head and not the tail. I am above and not below. I am highly favored. I'm the apple of the Lord's eye. Yes, I can see from Auma. She says, I'm worthy. I'm a leader. I'm going far. I'm a kingdom financier. Yes, we need kingdom financiers. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we are living in a time where technology is advancing faster than human thinking, but leadership will never be determined by technology. It will always be determined by the way you think, by your mindset, by your paradigm. And you cannot lead effectively in a rapidly changing and complex world with a fixed mindset. Okay? You cannot. The future is not asking more from you, it is asking you to become more. Okay? The future is not asking for more, it is just asking you to become more. Right? So, upgrading your tools, without upgrading your thinking, will not lead you very far. Next slide, please. So, moving forward, you need to ask yourself, what mindset must I let go to grow in this season of VUCA of AI acceleration, of data analytics? What mindset must I let go to grow in this season? What new way of thinking must I develop? And who must I become to lead in the new era? Many people think that what they do is what will lead them to success and beyond success to significance. No, it is who you become. Because if you acquire a Ferrari and you have not become the kind of person that is able to manage a Ferrari, you will not enjoy life. You will not enjoy your Ferrari. Okay? So who must I become to lead in this new era? So, ladies and gentlemen, the future will not be led by the most intelligent, but by the most adaptive, self-aware, and purpose-driven leaders who think positively, who have a growth mindset, and who are ready to add value to other people. Because there's nothing more valuable than adding value to another human being. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to your comments, your input, strengthening what I've said, and also any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Wow, 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 wow. What a session. The future is not asking for more. It is asking you to become more. Wow, my takeaway home. What a session. Thank you very much, Mama, for such an insightful session. I hope we are blessed. I'm seeing the chat is bubbling. The energy is up high there. Let's appreciate Mama. I'm not seeing those reactions. Let me see them. Please post on the chat your comments, your appreciation. Yeah, Mama, the love is there for you. They are pouring it for you. Thank you so much. You know, my notebook is almost full. I love the fact that the future is not determined by technology, but rather it's determined by how we think, our mindset. You know, that for me is a game changer. How do we think? For us to influence this world, then we need to uplift our thinking. And that example that you gave us, that you cannot purchase a Ferrari if your thinking is not to the level of a Ferrari. You know, you cannot even think about it. Rather, it's just going to be at the backyard. So, but before you purchase a Ferrari, your mindset must be up. If you're thinking about disruption, a global disruptor, then your thinking must be up there. You know, what a man thinketh, so he is. Thank you so much, Mami, for such insightful nuggets that I'm taking home tonight. I believe someone has been transformed. Please share. It is now time for Q&A. If you have a question, please share, type on the chat. If not, you raise up your hand and I will give you an opportunity to ask. But before we do that, please, our YouTube channel is on Future Den. Please go and follow. This session is live on YouTube. Even after here, if you did not catch up or probably you want to take notes, please go on YouTube and listen and write down the notes and pick up something. Share with someone, share with a friend. Our social media platforms, we're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and X. All, please go and follow, and you will find most of this important information. This conversation are always happening twice every month, every first week of the month and every third week of the month. We always have such conversation curated for you to help you disrupt, but above all, to help you transform your mindset. I do not think whether I have really learned or studied hard about mindset more than I've had today. The simplicity in which Mama has really brought it for me is a takeaway. And I think I'm going to use this as my reference session whenever I'm studying about mindset, fixed mindset, growth mindset, and the other four types of mindset. Actually, I've been thinking about the two, fixed and growth mindset. I didn't know there are many other 3 extra. But yeah, it's a time to study, time to learn. Learning never stops. Thank you very much. It's now Q&A. Please, if you have a question, I would like to, let me start with those who'd like to say it. Maybe you'd like to ask a question verbally. Please raise up your hand, and I should be able to give you an opportunity to unmute. Anyone? Anyone? I would like to recognize Betty Mutesa, Miss Betty Mutesa. Thank you so much. She is the Undersecretary at the Office of the President. Thank you so much for always being with us. We appreciate your presence. I'm seeing a question here. Someone here is asking a question. For small organizations with limited resources, how can I, this question is from YouTube. For small organizations with limited resources, how can I practically start using data or AI tools to improve decision-making and performance? That is a question from YouTube. Mama, I hope you have noted it. Any other person to ask a question? I should be able to receive more other questions. Please, if you're unable to unmute, type it on the chat. We'll be able to pick it up from there. For those on YouTube, type it on the comment section. We should be able to pick it up from there. Mama, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, please. I think that the best way is actually to ask ChatGPT because there are many tools. I know it sounds funny, but there are many tools that are available that are free of charge. That you can use to set up all these systems. For example, ours is a leadership development organization. We do trainings, and we are in the process of setting up a system. I'm not going to give you the details because I'm not that tech savvy, but if you do your research very well, there are tools that are free that are available for small organizations like ours to actually be able to use AI. But even just starting to use ChatGPT alone will help you to it will give you a lot of insights. But please, you are all young people and more tech savvy than I. If there are tools that one can use, please put them in the chat so that people can take advantage. As a small organization, you can start with what is free of charge, but educate yourself first on the best way to use AI tools in order not to become totally dependent, to allow these tools to do the thinking for you, because people can see through it that AI has done this project proposal or grant application and you won't go through. But look them up and find out what the free applications are that you can actually use. Thank you. But if
Okay,
Steve, if you have other ideas, please also tell us.
Okay, thank you very much. Mami, you've actually perfectly responded to that. There are available tools, free tools that you can use to improve your decision making and performance. But of course, you need to leverage more the technology, just like Mama said, AI. AI has a number of tools that we have repeatedly talked about here. I think there is a session that we had with one of the Kenyan gentleman in technology, I think, when we talked about all those tools. It's available on YouTube. Please go and look out for it. There are a number of AI tools that are listed there, but you can also go on the internet and check it out. Mama, there is a question here. Your CV is long, and you're 62. I don't know whether it's 60 or 62. You mentioned it, and you've
Please,
achieved.
I'll be 61 this year. I'm not yet 60.
Oh. All right. And you've achieved a lot in life, having worked in the United Nations and worked in all, every part of the world, in fact. And you've achieved a lot in particular, and served in different high-ranking positions. How were you able to get that level? Would you mind sharing with us practical steps and strategies on how a young man like me, a young leader like me, can be able to position myself to leverage on those opportunities that are available in the marketplace, apart from the mindset that you have talked about?
Yes, thank you for that question. I think we need a whole day for that. But I started off as a volunteer, as a UN volunteer, and I was willing to leave a job that I was doing in the UK, in London, uh, and go to Mongolia to volunteer because in the UK I was not doing something that was in my heart that I felt was my purpose. And I started applying for various jobs, and the one that I found was in a country that I didn't even know where it was. It's my mother who told me where Mongolia was. So it took courage to go there. I left my husband in England studying. I went with my 1.5-year-old daughter to a country where you get minus 40 degrees centigrade in winter. But what I can say is from that time, I made it a point to serve one, but also to serve beyond the immediate. For example, you have your terms of reference. I was doing 2 jobs at the same time, 2 to 3 jobs at the same time, because it was needed. There was so much capacity required. So it's not to make yourself indispensable, but almost that, where you are there not just to get your salary and to feel good that you have achieved something, but you're there for the good of the organization, the good of the people that you're serving, and for the results that you're obtaining. And that is how the deputy head of UNDP, saw me, that when she saw what I was doing, she invited me to follow her in the next country, in Kyrgyzstan, where I was then working as a chief technical advisor. And again, I found that each country I went to, and I made a decision to love that country, to love the institution, to love the job, and love the people. And I'm not talking about feelings. I'm talking about the agape love. What is the truth about this nation? God has decided to bring this nation to this place at this time, at its appointed time, for a purpose. And God has put me in an organization that has a purpose. What is that purpose? What is my purpose in that organization? And once I understand that, I strive to fulfill that purpose. And I usually can know when it is time to go and move on to something else. Many of us, I have seen some young people saying, "Oh, I hate this job. This job doesn't do anything for me." My goodness, that job can only harvest, what you put in. And even if you put in a lot of work, but you are not putting your heart in it, you will harvest a heartless harvest. I'm not sure if I'm making sense to you, but that is what I have seen that has worked for me. I put in my all, both the love and the competency. I learn every day, you know. When they ask who is going to do this, I put up my hand even when I don't know what it's going to be like. Yeah. And because of that, there's a job that I got where actually twice I have been given higher promotions without interviews, without any interviews. And when I think about it, if I had been interviewed, perhaps I wouldn't have passed it. But God is faithful to those who are faithful. And he made it such that I will not be interviewed for that position. I'll just be offered the job because they interviewed everybody else who knows me. And they gave me the jobs. Those are two jobs I got. So I think it's really about what you give, and also understanding the purpose of that country, the purpose of that organization in God's kingdom purpose, and your purpose for being there, because that makes things much easier even when you face adversity. There's a time when I was, even taken to the UN tribunal. The staff were accusing me of different things. We were fighting to keep the organization going. And I saw the importance of spiritual warfare at work, creating an altar where you're praying, you know, even in an organization that doesn't allow, Christianity, but you pray and you bring God to the center of your organization, to the center of your job. I'm telling you, you will not fail. You will begin to get great ideas. I don't make presentations without seeking God for the download. It's amazing. You enter a room, you speak, and people say, "Oh, whoa," but it's not necessarily me. God, can give you what you're looking for when you seek Him diligently. Maybe I'm going into a preachy a preachy material, but that is my reality. It has been
We
God.
understand.
It has been
Yeah,
God,
we
to be honest.
understand. Thank you so much, Mami. And I pick out the very important aspect of volunteering, which our generation one of these days is afraid of. If someone comes into a job and, what are you offering? How much are you paying me at the end of the day? Not knowing that that is actually the bedrock of success. But well, thank you so much, Mami. For that, I pick out the aspect of God in what you do, clarity of purpose, resilience, and I think really that's practical enough for anybody here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a few minutes, and to end this call, please ask questions. If you have something to say, kindly let me know. Raise up your arm so that we can give you an opportunity to ask or even supplement what Mama has talked about. But Mami, just one more question is that we living in a generation in a time where many or rather young people put on many expressions, coat of many colors, I mean, and they struggle with the aspect of mapping them out. Someone is displaying, expressing, and feeling that he can do anything. Of course, it's true we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. But how can a person practically map out his skills to suit the environment today, but also be able to scale up from where they are at the moment?
Yes, what I've noticed is that our young people these days are very multi-skilled, right? And there's that urge to do almost everything. But I'm going back again to the why are you here? First of all, what is your purpose? What is your calling? Secondly, among those things that you are passionate about and you do, which one of them do you do most naturally? That you would easily, with effort, become better than most people around you. I was working with a young man on this issue, and he was, saying, okay, he's a photographer, he's a videographer, and he does that very well, but he also wants to be a musician, and he has started spending his money and so many things in the music. But I asked him, when you sing, would you say that you are the best in your circle of singers that are in your country? And he could not measure that. He could not agree with that. But when he looks at the videography that he does, it is beautiful, and there is demand for his services in that. And he's thriving. He's thriving. He hasn't left the music completely, but he is focusing on what he can do best and what is demanded best, most in the market, so that you don't spread yourself too thin. I've always wanted to be a leadership development expert. I've always wanted to teach leadership, but I was in a full-time job. I had to wait until I retired to be able to do what I'm doing right now. So there are some passions that can come later, but focus on what you do best. Thank you. And Steve, there's somebody online who is president of our Business Network International. She has been even given an honorary doctorate at the UN. She's really an amazing businesswoman. I just wanted her to say hello and just share what she feels about the mindset, if you don't mind.
Wow. Thank you so much, Christine.
Her
Sorry,
name is Anne Bachaita.
I kept going on and off network issues. Well, my name is Anne Bachaita, and I'm so happy to be listening to my dear friend, someone I look up to, Christine Musisi. That was a very wonderful presentation, and everything you said was like, wow, that's what we all need to hear. The mindset, the how we affirm ourselves. All the points you brought out really are really point on. That's something we need to hear more about, and I'm so happy to see what you are doing, how you are mentoring people, how people are looking up to you, me included. I was here cheering with your cousin just by my side and said, wow, wow. Hearing your story, I didn't even know you went to Mongolia. That when we see people in positions of authority and leadership, we don't know how they got there, the journey they went through. So thank you for sharing your journey with us, and I'm so glad you're living your purpose as you always wanted, to be a leader, to teach leadership, and you're doing it so well. All the best in more teachings. I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much, Mami, and thank you so much, Anne. The other name is interesting to pronounce, but thank you. Hopefully, one time we'll have an opportunity to host you here, and you share with us your experience and
You
expertise
should.
as well.
You should.
As well, we love gleaning from the well. Yeah, thank you very much. So any other person, just in 1 minute or two before we close this session, any other person on the chat probably who has a question. But thank you guys for being with us from the very, very, very beginning. Thank you for joining in, Ale. Thank you for learning continuously, joining this conversation. These conversations put in place to support you in your professional journey, to, nudge something in your spirit, in you, to provoke something in you to do exploits, to go out there and influence the world. That's what we live for, to support you to lead a meaningful life, to contribute meaningfully in your community. That's why we are having these sessions. And we're going to be having many of them coming ahead of us. On 19th of April, which is next month, we are having a live conversation with Dr. Dennis Sempewa. Okay, it's going to be Q&A. It's going to be an amazing, session in there. People are going to come in, leaders, authors, entrepreneurs are just going to come and ask questions. So if you are here and you're in Kampala or you're outside Kampala, please fly in and just attend that session. We are going to be having an amazing, speeches on that day, and Mrs. Christine Musisi is going to be around, and she's going to be one of the speakers on that day. So if you have a question that you have always wanted to ask a leader, a seasoned leader, an acclaimed leader, please come on that day and invite a friend. And it's going to be free of charge, and it's a Sunday. After church, don't go home. Just come straight to Intinda, Nobview Hotel Intinda. Free entrance. Come and ask questions. Right. Any other person who has anything to say? If you do not have any question, I would like to ask Mami to give us her parting shots. But before she does, I don't know whether Faith is on the call. I would like Faith to come on and give a vote of thanks. Faith, are you on the call? Faith? Patrick, is Faith on the call? Okay, I think she has dropped off. Could have been because of network issues. Yes, Mami, thank you so much. Please proceed to give us your parting shots.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed it. I would have loved to have more interaction with you, and maybe I should, in the future, I should shape it in a way that we are interacting throughout. But my advice is, please do lead yourself first, add value to yourself so that you can add value to others. And it is that adding of value to others that accelerates your growth as a leader, because everyone you add value to will also add value to yourself. And that becomes a very good virtuous circle that helps to lead you to significance, to the ultimate purpose that God called you for. AI, treat it as an accelerator. Treat it as a helper. Do not treat it as a crutch or as your driver. You need to drive it in order to benefit from it. If you ignore it and say for you who are Christians that, oh, this is the beast, this is it the mark of the beast? You will be overtaken and you will be left behind in the new time that we are living in today. But thank you so much. I wish you all the best. I pray that the Lord blesses the works of your hands, that He multiplies you, that He increases you, that the Lord bless you and keep you, and that He makes His face shine on you and helps you to arise and shine and arise to your light, so that kings of this world may come to your light and benefit from your leadership. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you so much, Mami, for that blessing. And thank you for blessing us today. I've learned a lot. I've learned a new term. VUCA. Is it VUCA? The world, complex world. Complex world is VUCA plus. Okay, something to study about. But thank you so much, Mami, for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of this session tonight. Thank you for being a part. Thank you for learning. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have learned something. I would see you next month. If you have not registered for that session, Dr. Adini's session, please do register. Patrick is going to share the link on the chat, but also on the WhatsApp group. We have a WhatsApp group where we always post these opportunities whenever they come by. So please join the WhatsApp group and go to our social media platforms, like and follow. Thank you so much. See you next month. Could have been on 11th of April. That's when we have our next session. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Have a good night.